Good morning to Tijuana's creative community. Am I projecting loudly? Is it, okay. Is the mic going?
Here.
I'll do it this way, that's fine. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for having me down. It's a great, it means a lot to me to be invited to come here this morning, so I'm really proud. I thought it was interesting when they first invited me, they asked me if I'd come speak, and then they told me the topic was weird. So I'm not quite sure how I fit into that. So I'm going to tell some stories today. They might be weird, they might not be weird, but I'm going to try to talk about a little about what we do in public relations and how we tie strategy to creative execution. And then I'm going to throw out a challenge to all of you for an opportunity that we can all work on that's going to do good for both sides of the border. So I'm going to just tell a couple of stories. When we're done, I'll have some time for Q&A. The other thing I thought was interesting being invited down here with a last name that starts with Trump and then has a lot of letters. I wasn't sure I'd be invited, but I am not related to that man, and I do not agree with him. We do not believe in walls, we believe in bridges, and see huge opportunity for the San Diego, Baja region if we can all work together. So that's where I'm starting. I'm not Trump, I'm Trumpfheller. So let's clear that up. I'd also like to give a shout out to the family back in San Diego, the family at NST. We're live streaming this on our Facebook page, so hi folks. See how that works out. Is there a clicker, or how am I advancing slides? He disappeared. That's part of my magic act. Okay, well the first story I'm going to tell you about is, everybody familiar with Chicken of the Sea, the tuna company? They've been a client of ours for 20, 25 years. So I don't know if you all know, San Diego used to be the hub of the tuna industry in the United States because they would take the boats out of San Diego and go catch tuna and bring them back. And the harbor of San Diego used to be tuna processing plants. That's all moved offshore now, but the hub of tuna in San Diego, Chicken of the Sea has been part of that for a long, long time. So one of the challenges we've had with Chicken of the Sea is convincing moms and kids that they should buy canned tuna, because how many people remember as a kid wanting to eat fish? Not so much, right? Most kids don't like it. The idea of it scares them. So one of the things we were trying to do was to get people to understand that canned tuna is really flavorful. It's very healthy. It's good for kids and families. It's very convenient. So we were always looking at opportunities to do that. Well, with the strategy of convincing moms and kids they could buy tuna, we got very lucky. Jessica Simpson had a television show, and on her show, she made a few comments that were pretty interesting. The show was her and her husband as newlyweds, and what she said was, "Is this chicken what I have, or is this fish? I know it's tuna, but it says Chicken of the Sea." So we confused her a little bit. But when that was on the show, we went, that's exactly what we're trying to do, is to get people to understand that the flavor's good. What can we do with Jessica to help get that message out to a lot of people? So we invited her to a Chicken of the Sea national sales meeting. They're going to have all their sales guys from the US in San Diego for the sales meeting, and we invited her as a surprise guest, and we had her come in and sing the Chicken of the Sea jingle with the CEO of Chicken of the Sea. And we videotaped it. And we put that video up on satellite so the news stations around the country could pick it up. And it was amazingly successful. It ran on 1,000 different news broadcasts in the very first day that we put it up on the satellite. It was kind of like we talk now went viral, but viral didn't exist then because Facebook didn't exist, Twitter didn't exist. This was viral back in the days of you wanted to get stuff to people, you either put it on a satellite or send them a little VHS tape. Remember those? Anybody here old enough to know what those? Yeah, okay. So it was a challenging time to do that, but because we were able to get it up on the satellite and get these stations to pull it down, television stations all over the country were running the story about how good Chicken of the Sea tastes. I mean, that's what the story was from our point of view. It happened to be about Jessica Simpson and promoting her show, but it was extremely successful for the company. We also sent her with a basket of all of our products that they then took back and used on the show and played the thing out. And at the end of the year, when they do the year in review, it replayed again. So everybody said, here's the highlights of, I think it was, I don't remember what year it was, but it was quite a 10, 12 years ago. Extremely successful. The most important thing, it tied back to the strategy, and their market share went up significantly. So they sold more, 25, 30% more tuna under the Chicken of the Sea brand after that campaign ran. So it was extremely successful. Just for the record, she came back a couple years after that and wanted to do a sponsorship deal. It had a lot of commas in it, and we couldn't afford that. It was really, really expensive, but she knew what she did for the company. So again, an example of taking a strategy to a creative execution on the PR side of things. The other, it even ran on MTV. I mean, you don't talk about canned tuna on MTV normally, but we got a really nice story on MTV about it. So hugely successful for the client. The second story I want to tell you is about WD-40. Everybody know what WD-40 is? A little can of spray lubricant, currently available in about 80% of the households in the United States, sold in 176 countries worldwide. Very successful company. One of the really cool things about WD-40 Company is their CEO is a really cool guy, and he's willing to do really cool things, so we can kind of take things and push it a little bit. So when you look at the opportunity here, at one point in the 90s, they were a one-product company. All they sold was the WD-40 brand. And they had a strategy to grow the company by adding other brands into their portfolio. So what we were trying to do was figure out how to communicate that to people so we could be successful with these other brands. The opportunity came around, it was their 50th anniversary of the company. So they were originally founded in 1953. So we took advantage of this opportunity of the 50th to really create a creative PR program to try to get attention in two folds. One was on Wall Street, because they're publicly traded, and two was with their customer base, the end users of the product, to try to show them the new products that we were offering. So the creative, we actually put the CEO in a suit of armor and had him ride a white horse down Wall Street, Times Square, through Times Square in New York City, and go to the NASDAQ marketplace and ring the opening bell of the market that morning. So if you imagine someone says there's a CEO of a publicly traded company wearing a suit of armor, we got a lot of media attention. And this is why I talk about Gary being great. It's a great sport to be able to do this. But it all tied back to the strategy because we were trying to go from a brand fortress, one brand, pretty dominant brand in its category, to a fortress of brands. So if you think of the analogy with the knight in shining armor protecting that fortress, that's the CEO's job. So there was a connection to it that worked well in both our corporate outreach as well as the work we did with our end users and how we were able to leverage that. Again, videotaped this, put it up on satellite, got a lot of TV attention for it. You can see here, this is New York, Fox 13. There he is on the horse riding through town. It was pretty interesting. The good parts of these stories I can't tell you, unfortunately, but the process of getting him into this, sorry Gary, if he sees this, I gotta be careful. It was a lot of fun. We were in New York, we landed in New York at 4 o'clock in the morning. We had a police escort through town. I mean, it was just all kinds of crazy fun that we had. But at the end of the day, it helped position the company and position the new product offerings that we're doing, and it was quite successful. So those are just a couple of examples of some creative stories of creative execution of strategy. One of the things we always preach is creative is wonderful and it's critically important, but if you don't connect it back to the strategy to achieve the results that you're trying to achieve, creative for creative's sake, and I'm scared saying this in front of a room of all creatives, sorry about that, but if it's just creative for creative's sake, it's not gonna get the job done. It's gotta be collectively tied back to the strategy and all those pieces and parts working together to be successful. I was chatting with some of the folks earlier about all the really good stories I have. I can't tell, because a lot of them are involved in crises and other things like that where you never heard about it because we were able to work behind the scenes and get those things done. Those will be cocktail conversations, not when video cameras are on. So happy to have those chats as well. The next thing I want to do is throw out a bit of a challenge. You're all familiar with The Big Bang Theory? It's, I think, still the #1 TV show in the United States. I know it's in top 5 here in Mexico. It is very popular around the world. Do you all watch it? It's pretty darn funny. It's pretty funny. I'm a little leery because sometimes I let my kids watch it, and they're 8 and 12, and I should not let my children watch that TV show, just for the record. They always come up with topics they shouldn't see. But what's interesting about this show is some of the things that happen within this show have a really interesting tie-in for the relationship that San Diego and Baja have together. And there's this little thing that you see the dynamic of those guys working together and how the roommates work together to get things done. If you think about how it correlates to what we're all about here in the San Diego Baja region, there's some really interesting ties. So I'm going to allow me to go down this path a little bit. It's a little bit of a story, a little bit of a journey with this, and then a challenge I'm going to throw out for all of us. First, if you look at San Diego and Baja together, we must help each other if one of us has a problem. Something bad happens in Tijuana, something bad happens in San Diego, something good happens in either spot. We've got to help each other out. We've got to work together to solve problems because we've proven over the years that if we work independently, it's not going to get done. So the premise here is helping each other, just like one friend must assist the other if he or she becomes a robot. You see where I'm going here? It said weird. I had to get weird, okay? So secondly, we must work together to solve common problems. And if you quote Sheldon again, presumably one friend will help the other destroy a monster that has destroyed Tokyo's. We call them politicians. Oh wait, I can't say that out loud either, can I? But we have to work together if we're going to do things. When we talk about border infrastructure and getting things built on both sides of the border, we need our countries to collaborate to get that stuff done correctly. That collaboration is getting better and better, but I think we all need to help push that and make that happen. Third, while it may take a while, if we do work together, amazing things can happen. Again, building relationships, building bridges, not walls, working together for the collective good is very difficult. It's hard to do, but it can be done, and we've got to do it if we're going to continue to move our region forward. So if you look at that in Sheldon speak, selection of a new takeout restaurant requires a public hearing and a 60-day comment period. We've all lived through those things, right? You can't get anything done without going through the process. But the real important message there is if you never start the process, you're never going to get it done. So we all collectively as a binational region need to work together, even if it's simple as picking a new restaurant. And I found a new one I loved last night, thank you. It was a great restaurant. Every time I come down here, I find wonderful food, so that's why I got all this. So the fact is, we're more than just friends. You know, people call, yes, San Diego, Baja, it's a friendly relationship. Some people say we're neighbors. But if you really look at the analogy of our friends Sheldon and, what's the guy, I can't remember his name, and new Mike, we are in fact roommates. If you think about it, there may be a line that divides there called the border, and it does create a lot of logistical hassles. We all understand that. But if you think about what roommates do, most roommates put a line somewhere. Usually it's in the refrigerator. My food, your food, right? Sometimes we do it, my bedroom, your bedroom. If you're fortunate enough to have two bedrooms. I shared a one bedroom with my cousin for a couple years. I don't recommend that roommate relationship, but that's all past now. If you think about the two regions, the two cities, the two countries, we are in fact roommates. And if we treat each other like roommates and come to an understanding of how roommates are going to live together and create sets of actions to get stuff done that we all collectively need to get done, we're all going to be better off. Does that make sense? So how many people hate having roommates? It's boring to be by yourself. Do you live alone? I couldn't stand it. I need people to talk to. Can't do it. I guess you got neighbors. You have a lot of people over? Nope. Okay. Well, we'll do a separate strategy over here. Because roommates are important. If you think about the relationships that you build with roommates and the correlation, again, that we can make in this binational region, there's huge opportunities if we change our mindset to what we're all about. The national dialogue that happens in Washington, the dialogue that happens in Mexico City, they don't think about us. We're too far away. So we need to change what they're all about and how they perceive this region and how important it is to both of our countries. So my challenge to everybody here is let's look at this roommate agreement and figure out what our roommate agreement is. And I'm not talking about a memorandum of understanding. I can't stand those things because we're going to agree to understand. What does that mean? I want memorandums of action. I want people to do stuff. And the cool thing when I got invited down here is I know creatives are doers. They get stuff done. So the challenge here is for the creative community on both sides of the border is how can we engage together to change the dialogue? It may sound, I'll go with the theme, a little weird, but you're not going to get it out of your manufacturing companies because they're busy building stuff. You're not going to get it out of, a lot of the industry and the stuff that's great and wonderful and important for both regions. I think it's an opportunity for the creative community to come together and really start to address this issue. Change the dialogue that happens both in the binational region, how that gets communicated back to Washington, Sacramento, all the places that are important in the US, Mexico City, the state level here in Baja, and all of that. So we up for the challenge? Think we can do it? I don't know what the action plan is yet. This is the beginning of a dialogue. We threw this idea, Rodrigo and I threw this idea out a couple months ago at a binational educators conference in San Diego. And afterwards, some of the academics came up and said, you guys are onto something here. So when you get the professors to come around to your way of thinking, I think we got something. So I'll throw the challenge out and we'll help take the lead on figuring this out together. But how do we all work together to create this roommate agreement that takes it to action, that changes the dialogue so that we can all prosper? So that's what I got.